A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. We begin in the name of Allah, the most gracious, the most merciful. We seek refuge in Allah from Shaitan, the outcast. I'm your brother Ahmed, and in this video, I want to present to you some arguments that have been made by our Sunni brothers and sisters, and also people from other sects, that the Quran cannot be the only source of guidance for mankind. We believe Almighty Allah said in the Quran, Inna Deena Inda Allah Islam. The religion in the sight of Allah is Islam. And Allah has said in several places that the Quran is an explanation. Tibyana likulli shay is an explanation for everything. My dear brothers and sisters, if Almighty Allah Himself claims that the Quran is an explanation for everything, then we come to the conclusion that everything, as Allah said, the Quran is an explanation for everything, then we come to the conclusion that everything can be found in the Quran. However, those who are against this idea or this message of Allah, that the Quran explains everything, they quote some verses from the Quran to support their claim that the Quran is insufficient. If you follow the Quran, you will not be able to practice Islam. If you follow the Quran alone, you will not be able to know how to perform a salah. You will not be able to know how to perform zakat, how to perform the hajj. All these details are not in the Quran. So according to them, if you follow the Quran, you will not be able to practice Islam, my dear brothers and sisters. However, Almighty Allah, the mighty one, the one who created the heavens and the earth, who can be truthful than Allah? Almighty Allah says in the Quran, who can be more truthful than Allah? My dear brothers and sisters, Almighty Allah said in the Quran, we have appointed for every prophet an enemy, devils of mankind and jinn, who use what? Delusive speeches to misguide mankind. And we believe that the hadith, the narrations that we have today are from Shaitan. However, the people who have been misguided, they quote certain verses from the Quran to support their claim that the Quran cannot be the only source of guidance. So the purpose of this video is that we want to look at the verses that they quote from the Quran to support their claim that we should follow something besides the Quran. So, in this video, our purpose will be upon one particular verse, which is Quran chapter 47, verse 33. Almighty Allah says, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu ati'u Allah wa ati'u Rasul wa la tubtilu a'malakum. Almighty Allah said in this ayah, O you who believe, obey Allah and obey the messenger and do not invalidate your deeds. This is one of the verses that Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah uses to say that the Quran cannot be the only source of guidance. Allah Himself is telling us to follow something besides the Quran. However, my dear brothers and sisters, I want us to take a critical look at this verse in the light of the Quran to see if this actually means what they are claiming, my dear brothers and sisters. First, I have to admit that when you are told that you should obey two individuals, example, if you are being told that you should obey your father and obey your mother, it could be, one possible meaning is that it could be that what your father says is different from what your mother says. If you are told, obey your father and obey your mother, the instructions from your father are different from the instructions from your mother. So here, two different individuals. What your father says, you have to obey. What your mother says, you have to obey. So this is the explanation, the belief that Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah have taken. They have taken that, okay, if it's obey Allah and obey the messenger, then you have to know that you are going to follow two things. The same way if you are being told that you should obey Hamza and you are to obey Umar, two different individuals. To obey Hamza is by following the instructions of Hamza. To obey Umar is by following the instructions of Umar. These are two different individuals. They are all two different personalities. However, verses of the Quran should not be taken in isolation. When Almighty Allah said, obey Allah and obey the messenger, Almighty Allah is telling us to follow one thing. And I want to give the evidence that obey Allah and obey the messenger is telling us to follow only the Quran. That is the purpose of this video. Obey Allah and obey the messenger. Almighty Allah is instructing us to follow only one commandment and not two different commandments. As in the case that in the example that I gave, that if you are being told to obey two individuals, it is possible that you are going to follow two different commandments. However, the Quran, verses should not be taken in isolation. Every verse has to be in harmony with all the other verses. That is why we are looking at this verse today. Obey Allah and obey the messenger. My dear brothers and sisters, there are so many verses. When you are they are taken in isolation, they will give a different meaning, a different explanation altogether. And I want us to look at some of these verses to be a support for my claim. Quran chapter 7 verse 11, Almighty Allah says in this ayah, وَلَقَدْ خَلَقْنَاكُمْ ثُمَّ صَوَّلْنَاكُمْ ثُمَّ قُلْنَا لِلْمَلَائِكَةِ اسْجُدُوا لِآدَمَ فَسَجَدُوا إِلَّا إِبْلِيسَ لَمْ يَكُنْ مِنَ السَّاجِدِينَ. If we are to take this ayah, Quran chapter 7 verse 11, Almighty Allah said, we have created you, indeed we created you, ثُمَّ صَوَّلْنَاكُمْ, then we fashioned you, ثُمَّ قُلْنَا لِلْمَلَائِكَةِ اسْجُدُوا لِآدَمَ, then we told the angels that they should all prostrate to Adam. فَسَجَدُوا إِلَّا إِبْلِيسَ, they all prostrated except Iblis. لَمْ يَكُنْ مِنَ السَّاجِدِينَ, he was not among those who prostrated. My dear brothers and sisters, if we take this verse in isolation, the meaning that we are going to get is that Iblis is an angel. This verse taken in isolation means that Iblis is an angel or was an angel. Because Almighty Allah said, we commanded the angels that they should all prostrate. They all prostrated except Iblis. Indeed, he was not لَمْ يَكُنْ مِنَ السَّاجِدِينَ, he was not among those who prostrated. So this verse taken in isolation means that Iblis was an angel. My dear brothers and sisters, another verse is Quran chapter 20 verse 116. Almighty Allah says, وَكُنَّا لِلْمَلَائِكَةِ اسْجُدُوا لِآدَمَ فَسَجَدُوا إِلَّا إِبْلِيسَ أَبَى. Almighty Allah is saying that وَإِذْ كُنَّا لِلْمَلَائِكَةِ اسْجُدُوا لِآدَمَ فَسَجَدُوا إِلَّا إِبْلِيسَ أَبَى. When we commanded the angels that they should prostrate, they all prostrated except Iblis. This verse is also telling us that Iblis refused to be among those who prostrated. And also, if this verse is taken in isolation, then it means that Iblis is an angel. Also, in Quran chapter 2 verse 34, we have the same verse there. Almighty Allah is saying that وَإِذْ كُنَّا لِلْمَلَائِكَةِ اسْجُدُوا لِآدَمَ فَسَجَدُوا إِلَّا إِبْلِيسَ أَبَى وَاسْتَكْبَرَ وَكَانَ مِنَ الْكَافِرِينَ. All these verses are taken in isolation. If all these verses are taken in isolation, we are going to get one meaning, and that meaning will be that Iblis was an angel. However, the one who is doing proper analysis of the Quran, the one who is reading the Quran in the proper way, will have to look at all the verses of the Quran. And if you were to look at all the verses of the Quran, then you come across one verse, Quran chapter 18, verse number 50. Almighty Allah says, وَإِذْ كُنَّا لِلْمَلَائِكَةِ اسْجُدُوا لِآدَمَ فَسَجَدُوا إِلَّا إِبْلِيسَ كَانَ مِنَ الْجِنِّ فَفَسَقَ عَنْ أَمْرِ رَبِّهِ. Almighty Allah in this verse, Quran chapter 18, verse 50, Allah said, when we commanded all the angels to prostrate, they all prostrated except Iblis. He was of the jinn. He was not an angel. Allah makes it clear in this verse that he was a jinn. He was not an angel. So if someone is to take the verses that I quoted before, earlier, to prove his point that Iblis was an angel, that person has abandoned this verse, Quran chapter 18, verse 50. That is what Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah, our dear brothers and sisters of Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah, the scholars of Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah, that is the same thing that they are doing to the verses of obey Allah and obey the messenger. My dear brothers and sisters, in Quran chapter 47, verse 33, Almighty Allah says, Ya ayyuhal ladhina amanu ati'u Allah wa ati'u Rasul. O you who obey, O you who believe, obey Allah and obey the messenger. And as I said, it could be two different personalities. However, there is a verse in the Quran, Quran chapter 4, verse 80. Almighty Allah says, Man yuti'u Rasula faqad ata Allah. Whoever obeys the messenger has obeyed Allah. My dear brothers and sisters, if we have two separate things, to obey Allah is the Quran, to obey the messenger is the Sunnah hadith. The Quran is a different thing from the hadith. Okay? The Quran is a different thing from the hadith that we have today. If you take hadith, you haven't taken Quran. And if you take Quran, you haven't taken hadith. These are two different things, two separate things. However, Almighty Allah is telling us in the Quran that whoever obeys the messenger has obeyed Allah. And this is proving that obeying Allah and obeying the messenger is to follow one thing, one particular thing, which we believe it is the Quran. If you are told that obey your father and obey your mother, two different instructions that they are going to give you. And in that case, if they are separate, if you obey your father, you haven't obeyed your mother. And if you obey your mother, you haven't obeyed your father. But if you are being told that if you obey your mother, you have obeyed your father, what does it mean? It means whatever your mother is going to say is the same thing that your father is telling you. Any commandment that your mother is going to give you is the same commandment that your father is giving you. It means your father and your mother are of one mouth. They have the same instructions. In that case, we can say that if you obey your mother, you have obeyed your father. However, if you are to say that obey your mother and obey your father, there's nothing which means that if you obey your father, you have obeyed your mother. So in that case, two different things. Obeying your father, you have to listen to the instructions of your father. To obey your mother, you have to listen to the instructions of your mother, which are two different things. If you obey your father, you haven't obeyed your mother. And if you obey your mother, you haven't obeyed your father. There are so many people who obey their fathers and they disobey their mothers. And there are some people who obey their mothers and they disobey their fathers. However, the relation between Allah and His Messenger is in such a way that you cannot obey Allah and disobey His Messenger. And you cannot obey the Messenger and disobey Allah. It is one particular thing, one thing, which is to follow one exact same thing. My dear brothers and sisters, so Quran chapter 4 verse 80, Almighty Allah is making it very clear. Allah said, whoever obeys the messenger has obeyed Allah. Allah and his slave. The messenger is the slave of Allah. So if the slave is obeyed, the master has been obeyed. So what about the one who obeys Allah? If whoever obeys the messenger has obeyed Allah, whoever obeys Allah has also obeyed the messenger. A is equal to B and B is equal to A. So the first evidence that I gave is Quran chapter 4 verse 80, which is saying that whoever obeys the messenger has obeyed Allah. It also means whoever obeys Allah has obeyed the messenger. How can you obey Allah? To obey Allah, you have to follow all the instructions of Allah. And it is among the instructions of Allah to obey the messenger. True or false? Yes. So the one who has obeyed Allah has obeyed the messenger. The messenger conveys the messages of Allah. Without obeying the messenger, there is no way that you can obey Allah. However, Shaitan has found a way to disbelieve. Shaitan has found a way for many to disbelieve in this clear verse of the Quran. My dear brothers and sisters, I want to give the second evidence that obey Allah and obey the messenger refers to one exact same thing, following one exact same thing, which is the Quran. Almighty Allah says in the Quran, my dear brothers and sisters, we should pay attention to this verse. Allah says in Quran chapter 22 verse 75, Almighty Allah says, Allahu yastafi min al-malaikati rusulan wa min al-nas. Almighty Allah says He chooses from the angels messengers as well as what? Human beings. So Allah selects messengers from the angels and also human beings. So when you find the word Rasul in the Quran, it can either be a messenger who is a human being, or it can be a messenger who is an angel. So the word messenger, if it appears in the Quran, it can be for a human being, it can also be for an angel. How do we know when Allah is talking about an angel and when Allah is talking about a messenger? It is the context. By the context, we shall know whether Allah is referring to a messenger who is a human being or a messenger who is an angel. In Quran chapter 69 verse 38, Almighty Allah is saying, فَلَا أُقْسِمُ بِمَا تُبْصِرُونَ وَمَا لَا تُبْصِرُونَ إِنَّهُ لَقَوْلُ رَسُولٍ كَرِيمٍ. Almighty Allah is saying that I swear by whatever that you see and whatever that you cannot see. إِنَّهُ, indeed, this Quran, لَقَوْلُ رَسُولٍ كَرِيمٍ. It is the speech of a noble messenger. Almighty Allah Himself is saying that the Quran is the speech of the Prophet Muhammad. May the peace and blessings of Allah be upon him. This Quran is the speech of Allah. Yes, we believe it is the speech of Allah. It is also the speech of the Prophet Muhammad. Anyone who does not believe that the Quran is the speech of the Prophet Muhammad has disbelieved in the Quran and has become a disbeliever. You might have not known this before this. But after you knowing that Almighty Allah Himself has sworn, that He swears by everything that you can see and everything that you cannot see, that the Quran, innahu laqawlu rasulin kareem, the Quran is the speech of a noble messenger. Who is this noble messenger? My dear brothers and sisters, let's continue with the verses. You should not end here. Let's we continue with the verse to find out who this noble messenger is. Allah is saying that وَمَا هُوَ بِقَوْلِ الشَّاعِرِ. It is not the speech of a poet. قَلِيلًا مَا تُؤْمِنُونَ. Little is what you believe. وَلَا بِقَوْلِ كَاهِنٍ. It is also not the speech of what? Of a soothsayer. قَلِيلًا مَا تَذَكَّرُونَ. Little is what you remember. And Allah is saying that تَنزِيلٌ مِنْ رَبِّ الْعَالَمِينَ. It is a revelation from the Lord of the worlds. Almighty Allah is now coming to say, Allah is saying that وَاللَّهُ تَقَوَّلَ عَلَيْنَا بَعْدَ الْأَقَوِيلِ. If this Rasul in Karim that we are talking about, if he had spoken lies against us, Almighty Allah is saying, لَأَخَذْنَا مِنْهُ بِالْيَمِينِ. We would have seized him with the right hand. My dear brothers and sisters, Almighty Allah said the Quran is the speech of a noble messenger. And now Allah is saying that وَاللَّهُ تَقَوَّلَ عَلَيْنَا بَعْدَ الْأَقَوِيلِ. If this noble messenger, this Rasul in Karim, had spoken lies against us, we would have seized him with the right hand. ثُمَّ لَقَطَعْنَا مِنْهُ الْوَتِينَ. And Allah said we would have seized him with the aorta. That's what Allah is saying. And Allah said, فَمَا مِنْكُمْ مِنْ أَحَدٍ أَنْهُ هَاجِزِينَ. And there is none among you who could have saved him. My dear brothers and sisters. So this is very clear. Allah is talking about the Prophet Muhammad. Because we know that angels do not disobey the command of Allah. And Allah is saying that if this noble messenger, if he had spoken lies, we would have seized him with the right hand. So Allah himself is describing the Quran to be the speech of the Prophet Muhammad. And this is not something new, my dear brothers and sisters. In the Quran chapter 46 verse 12, Almighty Allah said, وَمِنْ قَبْلِهِ كِتَابُ مُوسَى إِمَامًا وَرَحْمًا. Almighty Allah himself is saying that before the Quran was the book of Musa, Imaman wa Rahma, as a leading guidance and also as a mercy for mankind. Before this Quran was the book of Musa. My dear brothers and sisters, I'm asking you, which book is the book of Musa? Which book was before the Quran as guidance? It is the Tawrat. So Allah himself is referring to the Tawrat to be the book of Musa. We all know and accept that the Tawrat is the book of Allah. The Tawrat is the book of Allah, and Allah himself is also describing the Tawrat to be the book of who? The Prophet Musa. So to obey Allah and to obey the messenger Musa is to follow one book, which is the book of Allah, and also the book of Musa, the Prophet Musa, which is the Tawrat. So the one who follows the Tawrat has obeyed the book of Allah and has also obeyed the book of the messenger. My dear brothers and sisters, this is very simple. However, Shaitan has misguided so many people from the way of Allah. My dear brothers and sisters, obey Allah and obey the messenger. It's like when Almighty Allah says the book of Musa. The Quran has been described to be the speech of the Prophet Muhammad. The Quran is the speech of Allah. Yes, it is also the speech of the Prophet Muhammad. The Tawrat is the book of Allah. Yes, it is also the book of the Prophet Musa. So to obey Allah and to obey the messenger, you have to follow one thing, which is the Quran. My dear brothers and sisters, the Quran is the only source of guidance. It explains everything. How to perform a salat, how to give zakat, the amount to give zakat. Everything is explained in the Quran. Allah is saying the Quran explains everything. My dear brothers and sisters, this is the explanation that we have given you concerning obey Allah and obey the messenger. In the next video, we'll be looking at other verses and other claims that they have quoted wrongfully. And we will, inshallah, present the truth from the Quran. May Allah guide us and give us the understanding. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.